is an apocryphal story in my family about my mother when she was a young kid, probably toddler age, maybe a little bit older. She was out playing in the yard and the rooster got after her for some reason. And apparently my granddad pulled up from wherever he was and witnessed all this. So he was usually telling the story and describing it. But as he jumped out of the car to run toward my mother because the rooster was after her, my grandma came out the door with a broom in her hand and she rearranged some feathers on that rooster. And so my grandma kept chickens and sold the eggs. And so although I was not witness to a lot of that, I remember that story. And I love that story because it fits so well in our theme today. Because not only are there chickens present, but there's my mother hen grandma with her broom coming out to of the door to protect her chicken. And I also realized as I was reflecting on that story that as a city dweller, now I grew up in the country and I have more familiarity with such things than some of you may, but I also, for many years, have dwelt in the city, and I love being a city dweller. The funny thing is that once in a while, even these days in the city, we hear chickens, we
Mhm.
hear a rooster crowing. People people are keeping chickens around us, so although I can't see them, I do hear them. But I know maybe too little about chickens. Definitely not as much as Jesus' first century hearers would have known. This would have been a familiar image to them, like so many images he uses. And it worries me that sometimes we don't understand those images or hear them in the context. Uh, we definitely don't hear them in first century context, but if we're urban dwellers like some of us are here in the Bay Area, we don't know maybe as much as we should about chickens to understand what's going on here. And I have that concern. I think Jan Richardson captures that. And this is not just about chickens, but it's about other images Jesus uses as well. Jan writes, how do we hear the sacred stories that are rooted in an agrarian landscape that fewer and fewer of us inhabit? How do we receive the imagery of the Bible when we are cut off from so many of the sources that imbue those images with meaning? Think of vineyards, pastures, flocks, sheep, hens, well springs, gardens, fields. And not only those agrarian images, but other images as well that speak to what it means to be community together. So we're gonna wrestle with this image of the mother hen and her chicks this morning, but I just want to bring out that there are lots of images in the scripture where the divine is connected in some way with birds. And I've tried to capture that in some of our music this morning. You heard Lauren Hill singing His Eye is on the Sparrow. And you heard, I can't think of her name now. Her first name is Kitty. Sing about lifting us up on eagle's wings, which the psalmist really liked this image of God as a powerful bird who might wrap us in his wings, her wings, their wings to protect us. I think it's also important to point out, in keeping with our underrated and overlooked women and feminine images in the Bible conversation, that a mother hen is a pretty feminine image. And I think it's really cool that Jesus chooses that image in this piece of Luke 13 to describe himself and his work. Now, this story also shows up in the Gospel of Matthew. It's the same comparison he makes to being a mother hen and the chicks. And so it shows up in two places. But we're going to look at the Lucan one today. Now, I want you to notice, because if you drop into this story in Matthew, Jesus has just gone on a long thing. Woe, you Pharisees and hypocrites and scribes, and he is not happy. And I want us in the 21st century to be careful how we read that when we hear those things. Jesus is critiquing his own tradition. He's critiquing religious hypocrisy in his tradition, much the way we critique white Christian nationalism in our nation. And I want us to make doubly sure when we hear these images that we're not hearing them in ways that are anti-Semitic. I think that's really important. And that's more evident in Matthew's version of this when we drop in. But I want you to notice how here in Luke, the Pharisees are doing a really good thing as we drop in. They're trying to warn him about danger. So if you tend to think of the Pharisees as always not, which the Pharisees were in this part of the of Judaism, the Jewish diaspora, the Pharisees were a very prominent group of Jews. They were very concerned with things like hand washing and purity. There were lots of laws they didn't care a whit about, but they were concerned about those. And that's why you hear Jesus so many times in the Gospels. There are conversations about who's sitting where at the table, or somebody didn't wash their hands properly. These are things that the Pharisees were very concerned with. So these Pharisees, this group of Pharisees, are warning him, get away from here because Herod wants to kill you. Now, we've talked about Herod. Herod was a Jew too, and he was appointed to his position by the Roman Empire. So he was in collusion with the Roman Empire. And Herod's quite a fellow. If you've been to my Bible studies, we've talked quite a lot about Herod. Herod, anytime Herod feels threatened by somebody, he kills them off, all the way up to his very apparently beloved wife, Mariamne. He has her murdered, like a whole string of other people. In the Gospel of Matthew, the massacre of the innocents, which we don't have any historical evidence for, but it would be very in keeping with Herod to do such a thing. When he was afraid of Jesus who was being born and had this conversation with the wise men from the east. Herod loved building big buildings to honor himself. His ego was very fragile. And there are inferences that can be made to leaders in the present moment. And I will leave that to you. Herod didn't have much of a moral compass. And so in the Gospel of Luke, he is responsible for the death, the murder of John the Baptist. John has critiqued Herod now, and also this is confusing because the Herod you have, in the massacre of the innocent story is the first Herod. They're all called Herod, but he has sons and cousins, and they're also all called Herod. So when we're trying to pull this out, it gets very confusing. And so one of the Herods has had John the Baptist murdered because he critiqued that Herod for his incestuous relationship with, I believe, was it cousin? Her name was Salome. And John critiqued that, and Salome didn't like it. So if you'll recall, she asked for his head on a platter. And so there's this whole abysmal, yucky story about how that transpired, and that was all very in keeping with the Herods. So when the Pharisees drop here and tell Jesus that he's in danger, it's a good likelihood that he's really in danger. And I want you to notice the metaphor he uses for Herod. Go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I'm casting out demons and healing and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I will finish my work. This is, of course, an allusion to the third day he will rise again. But he's saying Herod is not going to stop him. The fox, Herod, is not going to stop him from his work. Now, back to the hen and chicks metaphor, which we'll get to here in a minute. Foxes are predators for hens and chicks. And for people who keep chickens, you want to keep them inside an enclosure with chicken wire around them. You've seen chicken wire with the little holes in it, so the fox can't get to them. And so we have an image of a predator here. A predator who is a Jewish leader who is in cahoots with the Roman Empire. And Jesus doesn't mince words here. He doesn't like religious hypocrisy. He doesn't like hypocrisy of any kind, for that matter. But one of the reasons that he's always critiquing his own tradition is because he doesn't like that. And I think we too have to embrace that critiquing of ourselves and our own tradition as part of our spiritual practice. I think Jesus models that for us. And right now we have a lot of foxes that are circling around the hen house, so to speak. And the foxes around us are things like untruths and deception and outright lies and manipulating reality and gaslighting. And we have to discern our way through that. Discernment has become a daily thing for all of us. We have to pay attention to what we're reading. We have to pay attention to what people are saying. We have to check our sources. Because so many times things people are getting really upset about on the interwebs are not even true. And so it's important that we pay attention and that I should do a whole series on discernment right now because it's such an important practice. It's also exhausting. Are any of you tired this morning? You feeling a little exhausted, maybe a little just off and not okay? That's because there are so many foxes around the hen house doing stuff that we're struggling. We have to be on guard all the time. Our safety is being threatened. And I want to talk about safety a little bit this morning because safety is very important. We work in this group to create safety. And yet, I also hope that sometimes as we create that safety, you also feel deeply uncomfortable. Feeling uncomfortable and feeling safe are two different things. And so I just want to throw that out there because I think, we're doing a new Bible study, and in it, Dr. Amy Jill Levine, who is our guide, says if you read the parables and are not a little bit uncomfortable, you're not reading them right. And so I think I hope that you can feel safe, but also feel that discomfort sometimes as we move into our privilege, as we move into the things that are going on around us. Because the foxes are about, and sometimes they dress like chickens, or they dress like something sparkly or really pretty. And we have to be discerning. So I wanted to say that about safety this morning. And I love as always what Reverend Nadia Bolz-Weber says about this. And this is dropping back into the hen and chicks metaphor. I also want to show you this morning my favorite mug. I love Snoopy. I'm going to age myself here so you know how, because this was big when I was little and it's still big. But if you'll notice on top of Snoopy's belly there is Woodstock. I'll put Woodstock up here so you can see him. There was a whole episode in Snoopy about Snoopy had a bird guide and was trying to identify Woodstock in the bird guide, and it stays ambiguous. You never know what kind of bird uh, Woodstock is, but Woodstock is so important to Snoopy, and I love him. So I want to bring my favorite bird into our conversation with Woodstock this morning as I drink my coffee. Well, we've heard about sparrows this morning. We've heard about eagles and eagles' wings. And now we're going to hear about the mother hen. And I'll read you what Jesus says, and then I want to share what Nadia Bolz-Weber says about it. How often have I desired? He says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. He's critiquing his own tradition here. I could be saying, United Church of Christ, United Church of Christ. I could plug that in. Or I could say, United States, United States, evangelicals, evangelicals. I could plug that in there and it would be the same energy. The city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. You hear Jesus applying this beautiful feminine image of a mother hen to himself. And I also, Christy told me the other day that I'm a mother hen about you all, about my church. And I think that's probably true too. And so I want you to think about what it means to that I'm a mother hen with my church. It's a great metaphor. I care deeply. I want everybody to come along and get in, even though we might have some chicks out here or we might have some over here. It's like herding, the metaphor of herding cats also applies to herding chicks. And so I want you to think about that with me and also with the rest of your life, ways you might be a mother hen and what that looks like, because you're going to think of things like being protective. You're going to think of things like caring deeply, of wanting to shelter, of also wanting to, mother hen wants to teach the chicks what is okay to eat on the ground and what isn't. She wants them to learn and to grow uh into powerful chickens. There are lots of metaphors here. There are also, I'm not going to go deep into it, but I mean there are metaphors about eggs here too, about eggs hatching, about new life, about the image of hens and chickens was applied to a lot of ancient goddesses. I'm thinking of Demeter because I'm studying Greece right now. Thinking of Demeter, Persephone. You see in their iconography, there are these chickens. There are chickens that they're holding. And so the chicken is a symbol of something that's hidden and that hatches, or sometimes a symbol of the underworld. So those things are important for us to remember. So here's Nadia Bolz-Weber, which I told you I was going to read 10 minutes ago. A mother hen cannot actually keep a determined fox from killing her chicks. So where does that leave us? I mean, if danger is real and a hen can't actually keep their chicks out of danger, then what good is this image of God as Mother Hen if faith in her can't make us safe? Well, today I started to think that maybe it's not safety that keeps us from being afraid. Maybe it's love. You remember Jan's reading of preparation, reading of reflection? Beloved, beloved, beloved. Maybe it's love. A mother hen of God doesn't keep foxes from being dangerous. A mother hen of a God keeps foxes from being what determines how we experience the unbelievably beautiful gift of being alive. Are we going to let the foxes that are ranging about control us and control our lives? Are we going to put all of our energy into trying to protect ourselves and our neighbors? Or are we going to do that and also notice the beauty? You remember the poem I shared with you a couple of weeks ago? And it's, of course, in the bedroom, or I would read it to you, about how, we're called not just to notice, and she didn't use this metaphor, but we're called not just to notice the foxes that are roaming around us, but the baby with the bear ear hat. And we're also called to notice that the soup tastes really good. And we're also called to notice that we are in very good company in this place. And we are also called to notice that our still speaking God, Mother Hen God, loves us no matter what, no matter what's going on around us. Now, I lift up the people of Minneapolis this morning because, in the midst of all the chaos, they're organizing all these groups to sing. And they go out and walk through the streets and sing. They sing songs about hope. It's not that they're not nervous about the foxes or that the foxes are not dangerous, but they are choosing to see the hope, choosing to see deeper relationship. And for us, I would offer that this is about rooting ourselves and standing in the values of Jesus Christ. The Jesus who this morning is our mother hen God, who gathers us together under his wings. And so with that, I want to raise a couple questions and then we'll talk about this. Any first century hearer of Luke's scripture would have been familiar with hens and chicks. How does this metaphor sit with you in the 21st century? What resonates or doesn't? Nadia Bolz-Weber suggests that a mother hen of a god doesn't make foxes less dangerous. How are you taking refuge under God's wings, under the wings of Christ this morning with all the foxes, deception, lack of discernment, lies, manipulation around us? Why do you think there was such an overreaction to Reverend Rachel Held Evans? And I'm referring to a quote that I included in the front of the bulletin. She says, I've written 4 books, hundreds of blog posts, and dozens of articles, and only once have I used a feminine pronoun for God. And people still point to that as a reason I should be killed in order to quicken my eternal torment in hell. No joke. That's in reference to this being such a feminine image, which will not sit well with a lot of people, that Jesus calls himself a mother hen, gathering in his chicks. Why do you think there was such an overreaction to Rachel Held Evans using a feminine pronoun for God? And what do you think that might have to do with the strong reactions to pronouns we are still experiencing? What do you make of Jesus using such a feminine image to describe himself and his work? Let's talk about it. And if you are listening on live stream this morning, I want to well, first of all welcome you, which I should have done in the beginning, but I get so excited about preaching, I just want to jump in with my whole body. And so I want to back up and just welcome you to our conversation this morning and invite you to put comments in the chat in front of you if you have them or questions, so you can be part of things too. We're grateful that you're here with us. So let's talk about this. What's coming up uh, for you as you encounter Christ the Mother Hen this morning?